My name is Brian de Staic. I've been living in Dingle for about 30 odd years, but I've actually been in this business for over 40 years because I started in this business in Cork, where I was born. I learned the business, learned my trade there in Cork, and after several years of traveling and whatever, I came here to Dingle with a friend, and I fell in love with the place. And I haven't been outside Dingle since. We opened the first shop in 1981. In Green Street, which we still have, and from then it just developed. The thing that inspired me first was a very simple thing, would I be interested in becoming a jeweller, which I didn't know a lot about at the time. I was very good at school, in technical school with my hands, so I was invited to join this jeweller in Cork. He was very well known, and I gave it a try for a few weeks, and after that he said, well, you're welcome aboard. If you study Celtic work, artwork, I mean, we're very lucky in this country to have so much of it still preserved here, and we're still finding it. But it's all over the place, and it's actually pre-Celtic as well, because it goes right back into as we have here, like 5,000 years old stuff. So it's there all the time. It's only just to discover it and observe it, and the inspiration comes after, you know. It's very, very easy.
The cultural heritage of the Dingle Peninsula is exceptionally rich. It's said that the Dingle Peninsula and the Orkney Islands are the two areas in Western Europe with a dense amount of archaeology. It's a relatively small area of land, you know, jutting out into the Atlantic, 30, 40 miles long, 10 miles wide, and there are over 2,500 sites that have been listed. And it spans really every era from the Mesolithic period, about 5,500 BC, right through up until the 1700s, and then you've more items of historic interest after that.
Ogham is an amazing form of communication, simple and yet so direct. People were using it for various kind of decorations and stuff like that, but nobody was doing it to actually personalize people's names. It was, you know, just decorating. But we found out that we could make the jewellery and personalize it and market it at the same time with people's personal names. It's the uniqueness of it for anybody coming to, particularly Dingle or Kerry, that this Ogham alphabet is so plentiful around us. And it's growing in popularity every year I use it. It's fantastic.
The history of Ogham on the Dingle Peninsula is quite interesting because of all of the monuments that we associate with the area. It's the Ogham stone that probably stands out most in people's minds because they are the biggest concentration of Ogham stones is in the Dingle Peninsula. What they did when they were writing on the stones is that they take the edge of a stone, known as the stem line, and they carve between 1 and 5 strokes on either the left-hand side of it or the right-hand side of it, or on both sides of it, or diagonally across both sides of it. And they always start at the base of the stone. There's a line in a medieval document saying that you read a gnome stone like you climbed a tree from the base up. And we think the origin is the idea of the Roman numeral, because the first 5 strokes on the left-hand side of the stone are the letters H, D, T, C, and Q. And those letters happen to be the first letters in our numbers 1 to 5, but in the Irish language. So you've Hain, Do, Chi, Cahar, Cuig. Cuig, which is the Irish word for 5, started with a Q back in the 3rd and 4th centuries. It's quite common when you're looking at and looking for Ogham stones to find them in clusters. We have a number of them nearby in Kilkenny, near Beaufort. There's a collection of stones. You have a very spectacular Ogham stone at about 2,500 feet in Brandon up in Arraglan, and it refers to Ronan, the priest, son of Cumgaun. One of the more remarkable sites on the Dingle Peninsula is Kilmalcather, which is a medieval church site. It's an early Christian enclosure from the 7th century, possibly even earlier, and some of the stones in the area date to that period. We have some large crosses, we have a sundial, and then we have this remarkable Ogham stone that's also a contract stone. It's the only intact contract stone that we have, and we know that people came to these contract stones to formally agree on something, whether it was a land purchase or maybe even a marriage is suggested at some of them. People touch fingers in the hole, and then the deal is sealed. And some of this trading may well have taken place on site, because in the absence of towns, these little monastic sites were like the only centre that they had. Not only is it an early Christian site, it's a medieval church site of some importance with some Romanesque architecture from the 12th century, and the graveyard there is still just about in use. People who were born before 1950 are still buried in Kilmalcather. So there's a direct continuation on site from the middle of the 7th century right through until the beginning of the 21st century. One of the more prominent Ogham stones that we have in the peninsula is at the very edge. The most westerly point on mainland Europe is Dunmore. And Dunmore translates as the fortress of Moriarty, who is the sun goddess. The other stone that is of importance is down near the beach at Dunshean, and it's of importance because it was the first one identified in 1702 by a Welsh antiquarian, but it really wasn't until, I don't know, the 1920s, 1930s that Professor McAllister in Dublin linked it to a page of writing in the Book of Ballymote from the 14th century, where you have a page in Latin, and at the bottom of the page you get your classical ABC, and then underneath the corresponding Ogham letters. And that really is like the Rosetta Stone of the Ogham.
We have 5 shops. They're all in the Kerry region at this stage, and they've been very successful. We're very happy the way they work, but we're always looking for new challenges. The basic skills are sawing, which is probably the major part, and that means using a piercing saw, which is a very fine blade. And it takes a while to master the art of sawing, because in precious metals you can't afford to cover up your mistake. It's too expensive. So therefore the important thing is to learn to cut straight. After that you could say soldering, which is the assembly part of it, where you put the various pieces and put them together. The other parts then are filing skills, stone setting skills, which are a separate thing again. And after that, when you have all your skills put together, you're ready for polishing. And polishing is the most crucial. Because if you over-polish, a piece is ruined. If you under-polish, it won't be polished. It's going to be scratched. So all these skills are all part of the daily routine.
I mean, I would regard it as critical that the rich heritage archaeologically that we have in the peninsula is protected, but the best protection it can get is that people know that the sites exist, know their importance on the landscape, know the stories and the folklore and the mythology that go with them. And people, whether it is designing jewellery or writing books about it or drawing pictures of it or creating pieces of music about it, that's all part of the story. And when you have that interest in it, then nothing will happen it.
I do believe I'm doing something to help to keep the message alive, you know, because it's for me it's an absolute joy to be able to use what's been done before, but also modernise it or bring it up to new generations and new people. It's my pleasure to be able to do it.
If you go into farmers' land today and you ask them about the significance of an archaeological site, they won't give you sort of the story that I would give you, the sort of the cold archaeological facts. They'll come up with a wonderful, colourful, fantastical myth that their father heard from their grandfather, and this kind of long link goes back for God knows how long. So that's why it's critical. It's a central part of our identity and one of the main attractions for living and visiting the peninsula.